Welcome back to Survivor International coverage on Reality Pop. I've got a very special guest here with me today, Meryl. I can't pronounce your last name, Meryl. How do you pronounce it?
Szolkeiwicz. That's generally how I go as well. I just say I'm Meryl. And people are like, hi, the telemarketers that call as well, like, Mrs. Meryl. Like, that's me. Yes, Szolkeiwicz. I'm married for love. Yes, not for a surname.
What is that, like a Russian or like a
Polish.
Polish? I knew it was one of
Yeah,
the two. It's either like Polish or
yeah,
Russian.
yeah.
So,
My husband's Polish, yeah. Born in
oh,
Poland,
awesome.
but raised in South Africa, like properly South African. Pluckies, slip slops, flip flops. In the winter, that's him. Yeah.
Oh, nice, nice. Now, Meryl, it's been a while since we've seen you on the show. It's been, I think, nearly 2 years since it aired in South Africa. What have you been up to? Are you still into Pilates, instructing over there in South Africa?
Yes, I am. I've actually gone off on my own, and I did a few more other courses. So I do Pilates classes, but do some manual muscle activations as well. So kind of a holistic view of how the body moves and how we can heal from the inside out. Yeah, and that's what I do. I really, really enjoy it. It's applicable kind of in real life, the technique. So I really enjoy it. I enjoy see people having an aha moment and just finding kind of healing in their bodies and in their souls as well through movement. So yeah.
That's awesome. I'm a massive fitness enthusiast myself, and I get stuck into a
Mm,
lot of different training as well. So I'm kind of interested. How did you find your business sort of having to do this on your own over the last year with the pandemic? Because obviously that's made it hard for people to meet their clients face to
yes.
face, for instance.
Well, oh my word, this is a long story and it's kind of connected to the survivor experience as well. Which maybe I'll start there, seeing as
Yeah.
though this is a podcast survivor, not fitness. Um, so when I went to the island. Oh, I entered. I'm a massive fan of Survivor, like absolutely massive. We have in our home we have Survivor and homemade pizza night every night. It's the only night the kids can drink physical drink, and the adults have pinotage. And we watch right now. We're watching Blood versus Water 2, and we're down to the final four, I think. So we always just rewatch series, Survivor seasons, and so I've always been a fan of the show. When I became a mom, uh, it was really difficult for me to work. I'm actually a trained actress. I studied musical theatre, and had signed actually a contract for a movie when I was pregnant with my first son. And then we had like kids in quick succession. After that, we moved to the UK for a while. We did a lot of other stuff, and like I became an amoeba of a like in the family. Like it was just like me and my family. It was never me on my own. And my husband also knew that entering Survivor, if I get like, would be just so good for me and therefore for us. And so yeah, so I went to the island, like being such a fan of the show. I think I've got the skills to like win this thing. And I remember arriving and seeing like how huge these people are. I mean, there's Rob, there's Steffi, that there are really there's Rocco, athletes, and I'm a Pilates mom, you know. So it is quite intimidating, but more than anything, what I took from the experience is how like it boosted just my own faith in myself. And from that I was like, I work a little bit here, but because my kids were young, I'd always have stay close to home and change things around. I mean, that still happens. But now there are more moments that I've yeah, faith and confidence in myself. And that's then just before the pandemic, I actually decided I'm going to go off on my own. Let me just get the family settled, because one of them started in a new school. We had just moved house, and then the pandemic hit, and I was like, well, whatever. And then people called me up, which was so great. I didn't have to do anything. Like they were like, where are you? We need you. Please come to my house. Come to my house. And that's how it started. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And I'm really, really grateful for that. But for the survive experience, that just through enduring through those rainy nights of us like, you're not going to die, you're not going to die. And that, I guess, mental, um, yeah, it just taught you like, Mama, you got this. So that's
Yeah.
how I got to where I am now.
Well, I was going to say, like, whenever you look at Samoa, it looks beautiful compared to what we see in the traditional Survivor seasons now, because every single season is in Fiji. And I'm not saying Fiji isn't beautiful. I've actually been to the islands before, both Fiji and Samoa, because I live so close
Wow.
by. It's quite easy to go over to Samoa and Fiji. It's not that expensive from here.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
one of the
yeah.
things that I've noticed with Samoa is that the conditions are absolutely brutal. Like the amount of rain that you guys had to endure there is just insane. And I can only imagine what that would have felt like on the beach, being cold at night, not having a blanket, having to build your own shelter. I did notice that you were very happy that wherever you were going, that the tarp was in that specific camp. That was like your number one priority. It's like, which camp has got a tarp?
Yes. Even during the interview process of the show, I think while we were interviewing, I just watched Millennials versus Gen X, where like they had to be evacuated. Is that right?
Mm.
I think so. Yeah. And then there was another season, like we had watched a few seasons just prior to that, where people and I thought, obviously now because I was in the running for getting in the show, I thought like, what would I do in that situation? And they asked me, would you ever quit the show? So I said, yes, if it rained all the time. But now that I know that, now that I can prepare better, so maybe I like turned it around. But because honestly, like to sit there in the cold, hunger I can do, like not sleeping, mom life, what's that? But wow, sitting with strangers, it's not just like, oh, you're in the rain, you're in the rain with strangers. And when you do sleep, if you sleep, you're not actually quite sure because it's really uncomfortable. The bamboo is really hard. And the rain hasn't, it's only dripping now. It's not like pouring down because we were on the cusp of a cyclone twice. Uh, and um, and then you'd get up and you wouldn't know how long you've been sleeping for, or if you have been sleeping, and like because there's just during the daytime you can see where the sun is just to like track your time, but at night there's just absolutely nothing. And we were quite canopied in, so all you could see was the ocean and the stars, and it was really rough. It was. I've been through some tough moments in my life, and I think that's also what kind of pulled me through. Like there was never like a breakdown moment in that because there were other times in my life that I had to really endure through some tough ish. And so yeah, it was tough and strangers, and we all smell, and we're cold and we shiver. It wasn't a good recipe for anything. It was yeah, we endured.
Now, I'm quite interested. You mentioned that you were a fan prior to playing the show. I'm assuming you had like a mental game plan going into this game, like, oh, I'm going to try and be this person or play the game in such a way. How different was it to what your plan was going into the actual game? How different was the actual game that you were forced to play due to obviously the game throwing all these changes that you guys like you had to swap so many times in tribes and things like that? What was it
Yeah,
like planning for it versus actually being on the island?
I was very naive. I think also with regard to people, like I will still give people third and fourth chances. I'll like I don't know. I'm just that type of person. I always think that if we have a disagreement, there's an opportunity to build a bridge. So I love people. I love seeing how they interact, and I thought more than anything, I'm going to build good, decent connections, and that was more or less my strategy. Well, good, decent connections. Be a nice girl. Just be a nice girl. And I assumed that everyone would have known about Survivor. I mean, you're coming to this unknown place. We've had like about a month's preparation where you officially know that you're in the show. You have about a month, and before that, you are in the running. So I watched and I read blogs, and I went tried to look how to make a fire without flint and bamboo, and I remember like for days just kind of friction, like trying to build up heat. It obviously didn't work. We didn't have fire. Um, but and I assumed everyone would have done the same, but apparently my knowledge of the show was one of the reasons why I was voted out. Like she knows the show too well. She knows where all the idols are hidden. She knows too much information, how many boats need to go here and how many. But being on the island and I don't know. I felt very tiny compared to everyone, and I was very naive when I thought that we were building bonds and people were playing games. I was like, this was like the most amazing experience. Like six strangers from all different parts, and have at the Alo too, especially when it was like two from each tribe, and we were all trying to get either Letitia or Rob. So it was Nicole and Rob, and Letitia and Rocco and myself and Dante on like, and we all trying to make a three. Like someone is, and I just thought we were having the most amazing bond experiences. And then afterwards, I was like, wait, what? This is happening? So I was quite naive, and I've learned from that. Like people aren't always, and I had a little tingly feeling, but I was just unsure. Um, yeah, there's nothing that actually can prepare you for the game. I
Yeah. So I was
Yeah.
going to ask you about that first swap. You land in a tribe there with Rocco and Letitia and Rob and Nicole in that tribe, and obviously you've got your right hand person Dante there with you, and you guys are working, from what we can see on the TV show, really hard to get in with Letitia and Rocco. And I feel like at that time that was probably the weakest that Rob and Nicole was throughout the whole game. Like, do you believe that if you guys went to a tribal council at that point, that you would have targeted either Rob or Nicole at that time? And were you ever considering throwing a challenge to get rid of one of them? Did you guys see them as that big of a threat down the line, or did that not really come into your thinking while you were in a tribe with those guys?
Mm. It's quite a interesting question because at the time there was other stuff that didn't air. Like there's a lot of things that don't air, that inform my story or inform the greatest story, but it's not important enough for the winner's arc story. And I think a lot of people miss that. Like there are cameras on us, two or three cameras, 24/7, and we watch a little 44-minute edited version of the show, and it's been shot over 2 or 3 days, and there were three different islands plus the island of secrets. So there's a lot of content there to get through. So there was actually quite a lot happening at the time. A lot of people were missing their loved ones back home and feeling quite weak in that way. I know that Dante really he was targeting Rob, and we did see them. They were strong competitors, and there was a lot of talk of splitting them up. Um, I was always of the opinion that don't don't make things final until we go to tribal, because any information can be used like 2 days down the line to say, yeah, but that person was gunning for you. So that was always my approach to voting people out and getting rid of that guy. And like we don't need to finalize anything now. Let's just, okay, if that's what you want to talk about, because no one is a tribal. But that would have definitely been different. At the time, though, they both had idols. So when and if we went, yeah, on that beach there were three idols. I've just realized there were three idols and there were six people. Um, yeah, so it would, even if we voted for them, I don't think it would have mattered. They would have still had kind of the advantage, and they played hard from the beginning. It was really impressive to watch. Like, and I did it. I was so impressed. I was like, wow, look at them go. They're so clever. Yeah.
Now, you touched on a few things here, and in the show, like one of my favorite alliances were yourself and Dante. Like a lot of people who watch this podcast and that actually consume this content, they're not your average fan that don't know that there's a lot more that happens than what is being shown in the actual show. Because you get a lot of super fans that want to know more about what happened
Yeah,
behind
yeah,
the
yeah.
scenes, what didn't we see? Because obviously your perspective and what you try to achieve is different from what the winner is trying to achieve at certain times. The thing that I'm quite interested in is like, what sort of attracted you towards Dante, and why did you stay loyal to Dante throughout the show? Because he was someone that I really appreciated, and I could understand his personality a lot better probably than people watching it from the US or from Australia that just culturally
Yes.
don't know who we are as South Africans.
Yeah. Nothing actually. I wasn't initially. I On the first Alo, Felix and I hit it off really well. We both had connections to the town that I was born in, and we had a very good mutual friend, like a really good mutual friend. Like, so him and I were tight, and him and Dante were tight, and they were like bros. It was quite. The rest of us would like roll our eyes. Like, okay, you two. And so they were tight and we were tight. And then at one point, because we hadn't gone to tribal that whole first beginning, um, Tanya was talking like a lot, and we were all just getting along really well. And Tanya was just like, at one point, I was so dizzy from all the things she was saying to me. Like I didn't. It was just too much. I was like, I can't. And at one point, Dante pulled myself and Felix aside and said, "Listen, it's the three of us." And so when the tribe swap happened, I actually had to check in with him because I didn't really make that connection with him. And he was the only other person out of the 222 into Alu 2 that I knew that I. And so I was like, "Are we still? Oh, do we still have a thing? Are we still? Are we?" He's like, "Yeah, of course, of course." I'm like, "Oh, okay, okay, just making sure." And it did work well because we are both very, very, very different. He sees the world in black and white, and I see it in smudge and color and music and dancing. And and I think because of that, there were times where we could just help each other out, in each other's blind spots. He's obviously a lot more abrasive, and because he is that way, I mean, at sub three, like I think I was at like my lowest of lows during that time. We hadn't eaten. Like I was just like, what on earth are you doing on this beach? 12 hours away from anything you know. Like, who do you think you are being here? Like, what are you doing here? And at that point, um, he was, I think he just felt that he was putting in a lot more work than everyone else to feed us. He'd go out fishing, and then there were maybe other people in the tribe that weren't pulling their weight. Nate was injured for the third time or something. And I think he was just really feeling it, and he took his frustrations out by saying, "This person's pathetic," like in our tribe. "This person's pathetic. That person's not helping." And he was quite loud about it. And we also, people viewed us as the same thing because we were together from the first. We were just always together. We actually at some point we had to stop talking. I was like, we can't. So I tried to get in with other people, but they would see me as, yeah, like as we are the two heads of the same snake, me being the brains, obviously. And so they had to get rid of the brains. um, and yeah, it was an unlikely friendship, and it still is. It's like, even on the island, I was like, what is it that, I don't know, like I trust you 100%. You're just that person that I trust, and he had the same, and that was it. Like trust is something that's just very rare, and I think it was an alliance based on trust and time. Like there was no one else really at some point. So that is
Well,
Dante.
I love the alliance just because I could see the balance
Me
between
too.
him being someone that was really abrasive, wanted to get things done. I feel like the way that he is, like he will tell you how it is. So that's why you could trust him, because if he was annoyed, he was going to tell you, "I'm annoyed with this." And in Survivor, that's quite rare when everybody is playing a very conniving, backstabbing,
Yeah.
social type of game. The other question that I had for you is you were one of the people that found an idol in the season. Your idol was a really difficult one to find because you had to try and find it in a challenge. And again, it kind of highlights one of the big issues with Survivor. I feel like there's a big disadvantage for females when it comes to finding idols in these challenges because you don't have that much place where you can actually hide it. Like for guys, they've got pants and they can just put it in their pocket. What was that process like when it came to finding the idol? It did look like you had a lot of difficulty in trying to get the idol, then hide it, and then after that, Dante confused you by saying that someone saw you get the idol as well. What was that whole process like for you to go through it?
Oh, I it was so the challenge was slide puzzle, which I know I can nail. Puzzles, I love puzzles. And so when this was the challenge, the person who does the slide, because we had to like slide blocks across, and the person that does the puzzle or finishes the puzzle needs to be the person at the end. Like there was no way you could kind of do it from another position, because I thought maybe if I swim first, I'll be on my own. Um, and I like I like while we were on the mat, and Nico was explaining the challenge, and I took a glance and I could see the idol, and I thought, what on earth am I going to wear to hide this thing? I'm sure it'll be fine. It doesn't look that big. Like I've seen people like it'll be fine. And so when we got there and like I did the slide puzzle, which was really fun and cool to do. Yeah, I grabbed it and I kind of put it in my bikini top thing, and then I was like, oh my god, this is so stressful. Oh my goodness, like this is not going to work. And I was like, people have hid idols in there, like Kim Spradlin hid idol, like they. And then I tried. I was like, that's very bulge. What am I gonna do? And it ended up in my shoe. But yeah, I think it was just such a proud moment. Like I knew my husband and at least my eldest son right now, like all my kids are such fans now. But the little ones were a little bit too little. It was just such a proud moment for me. So like the moment itself was really big, like me having an idol in my hand, me leading our tribe to an awesome victory, and like doing it like surpassing the other tribes as well in terms of time. Like it was such a cool moment. It was short-lived, but it was a great moment.
Now, do you know who Kelly Wentworth is, or not so
Yes,
much? You know Kelly Wentworth. So
yes,
you're the only
yes.
other female survivor that, with Kelly Wentworth, have found an idol in the middle of a challenge, as far as I'm aware. So that's something to be pretty proud of, because I can't think of any other female survivor that had to find one in a challenge, and that's a really
Wow.
difficult thing to pull off.
Yeah,
Because she had trouble hiding it as well.
yes, she did. But everyone was looking a certain way. I love Kelly. I love the way she plays also. There was one in 39. What was her name? There was a challenge where they had to transport
Yes,
like a thing.
I know
What
who
was
you're
her
talking
name?
about.
She's
Yeah,
the
I forgot. Yeah.
redneck girl. That's
Yes.
yeah, she
I've
also
kind of
won one.
I've put season 39 behind me, and I'm trying to forget it. Like, it's not a very well loved season, to be honest with you, for all the controversy of what happened in that season. And luckily you weren't
Yeah,
involved in anything like that. Now, one of the big things
yeah.
that has become a very big talking point in Survivor US, that I believe is one of the things I really love about Survivor South Africa, is there's a lot of talk about more diversity being required in the cast in the US.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the diversity in the South African show? Like, it seemed a lot more 50-50. Do you think that we require more diversity? Were you happy with sort of what you've seen in the Survivor season? Because like I've tried to explain to Adam, who's my co-host on some of these podcasts, he's from the US. I said to him, South Africa's got, so many different ethnicities. It's called the Rainbow Nation. There's 12 official languages in South Africa, which makes for a great season because we get all of these different people from different cultural backgrounds that play the show. Do you think that South Africa is doing a good job with that? In my opinion, being a foreigner now, like I guess I grew up in South Africa, but I've been out of South Africa for so long, I do feel like it's great to see a lot of diversity in the cast.
Yeah, I really do. It obviously it doesn't reflect the amount of diversity that there is in our country. Like it's not a true reflection of the demographics in South Africa. Also, Survivor is a show played at the beach, in the water, and not everyone can swim because not everyone has access to the beach to swim. Like we're like a lot of people live inland. So there's that to mention. In fact, Ting Ting couldn't swim. That was one of, I don't know if you mentioned it. I know she was young.
No.
Ting Ting couldn't swim. She could like wade the water. But that was quite funny because she only told us that on the platform. She was like, guys, I can't swim. We're about to hit the water. So I think, yeah, I think in terms of reflecting the true diversity of our country, no. But diversity within the show, it is beautiful. And I mentioned at Alo too, we were just 6 people from completely different backgrounds and completely different beliefs and lived experiences. And at point, it was so beautiful for me that there was no judgment, at least from my, like, I wasn't playing game. I was like, oh my word, we're all kumbayaing. It's amazing. Peace and love and happiness. Yeah, there was a lot of acceptance with where everyone came from. Maybe it was, and I think we were, the cast was kind of between, most of us were between the ages of 25 and 35. Like there was a lot of us in that age group, and then there was like a few on either side. And I think maybe it was that, maybe we, yeah, but I enjoyed the acceptance and the fact that the race card never came up, or it just wasn't a factor in our specific game. I know in other games it was like there was some controversy in season 6 here and there, and you can, if you watch closely, you can see it. But there wasn't with ours. And I like the producers of the show. I actually love them. They're really kind-hearted. They're still producers, and they still have to like write these sticky situations or create these situations that you're in and sell a show. But they're also just such great people. Henry and Larry, really, really, really great people. Yeah, the production team is great as well.
No, that's great to hear. Now, the other question that I had for you, you made the merge, which is a brilliant achievement for anybody playing Survivor. Obviously, only one person can win. So congratulations, obviously, on making the merge. That is a great feat in itself. Now, you got to the merge with previous tribe mates. I believe Quibus and Jark were there as well. And yourself and Dante really tried to reel them back in and get them to vote with you guys against someone in the other side. I guess at the end of the day, you guys targeted Jeffrey, which was the plan, but it didn't go through. Why do you believe that you couldn't get Jark or Quibus back? I think I've got my own opinions on why Jark probably didn't come back, but Quibus especially, to me, is quite an anomaly as a player. What was the reason that he didn't come back?
Wow, I don't know. I'm actually really good friends with all of them. They're probably like the Ta'alo one. Like, yeah, why didn't Quibus? I don't know. You know what? There was such a lot of talk about this idol of mine that obviously everyone knew about, and the fact that I knew the show. The thing with Survivor, you need to downplay your threat all the time, because everyone is a threat. Like, you haven't been cast here because you were nothing or a zero. Like, everyone has been placed on this island. You kind of just have to listen and read and find. And the way to and I think that was it at the time also between Jeffrey and I, like, who is the bigger threat? I didn't even know that my head was on the chopping block. What happened is I was so thrown Nathan's vote, because I was so sure that Nicole wouldn't do that. Like, I was so sure, and it was really hard for her to vote for him. But I was so sure that she wouldn't. And her and I were actually also quite close at that time. So it threw me completely, because I just misread the situation so much. And I read it threw me so much that it took me a few days to kind of get over what the heck just happened. And I actually pulled away from gameplay. Like, obviously when you get home, you're like, oh, maybe I could have, maybe, what happened there? And that is like what happened for me. Is I actually pulled away from gameplay, because I couldn't understand the situation. And even like socially also, that she and I said it actually aired that I said, I'm like, she's so good with people, because she just betrayed her tribe, and they're all like best of friends. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, how are you this good? What is going on? And it actually pulled me out of the game, because I couldn't get over it quickly. And I've actually since watched Survivor and see where people are betrayed or blindsided at tribal council, that you have to get over that very quickly. You can't sit and be sour. And like, I thought of in Game Changers, when Siri was telling, what's her name, about like, when you are at your merge feast, you must be the happiest person ever. You can't be. And I was still trying to process. So my head wasn't in the game. My head was I was actually just emotionally processing what was going on. And I think for that reason, it was easy for other people to target me. And yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know how to answer your question about Quibus per se. I just also like the fact that I was a threat. Like, it was so unexpected. I was like, what, me? I haven't even really started playing this game. And it was sad, but it was very reassuring, as I said.
It's funny because we had Rob Bentelli on the podcast quite a while ago, and I'll link that to you as well if you haven't seen it. We were talking about why people should watch International Survivor if they haven't given it a go yet, and he was one of the guest people on our panel, the first person from your cast that I was able to get to come on the show, and such a nice
No.
guy to talk to.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's been nice even afterwards, like just a good bloke. And we talked about the fact that he said, oh, maybe I made my season quite boring going all the way to the end the way I played it. And I said to him, well, your job was to win. It wasn't to give people like Meryl or the Jeffreys or the Jarks an opportunity to build a counter team that can go against you. So in that sense, I think that you weren't really fully given the opportunity, because as soon as they saw that you had social pull and that you were good with talking with other people, immediately Rob, in this episode 9 that I just watched as well, he saw you as a threat, and he was like, no, she's more dangerous than Jeffrey, because Jeffrey isn't actually even doing anything, but Meryl was going and trying to get people on her side to vote with her. So you definitely should look at that as a compliment. And also, your idol player could talk about that. I don't think anybody would blame you, because I felt like Jeffrey played it really well, making you feel uncomfortable. And if you've got an idol in your pocket, you're better to play it than to sit there and get voted out with an idol in your pocket. So well played on that. And also the whole Nathan, and this is my next question, is going to be around the Nathan vote out, because the Nathan one was extremely confusing for me. Like, this is now my 3rd time watching your season from the beginning to the end. And we will have Nicole on the podcast at some stage, so I'll definitely ask this to her directly. That was an extremely confusing vote for me, because you couldn't understand why she voted against them. I couldn't understand why she was voting against them, because it just felt like the wrong move in that time. So it seemed like you had your plan of what you wanted to do logically, and you didn't expect him to go home in that specific tribal council. Now, the big question that I have for you off the back of that is that, did you guys ever consider, yourself and Dante, did you ever consider approaching Rob and trying to paint the target on someone like a Jeffrey? I don't know if Nicole would have ever worked, because him and Nicole just had that bond, but did you ever try and throw some people under the bus, since you guys didn't actually vote against Nathan? Did you try and paint a picture like, hey, we had Nathan's back. We're the only people who didn't vote against him. There were other people that threw him under the bus. Did you ever try that angle?
Like I said, it was a very complex, even at that moment, with Nathan being, yes, Nathan's a great guy. With Nathan, and also like rewatching it, seeing like, this guy's injured. Why didn't you just vote him out? Like, why didn't anyone just vote him out? But he just has also that really sincere way with people. Hard to answer this question. There was a lot going on.
I know I'm putting you on a point.
No. That's why I'm here. But I'm just, I want to answer the question as honestly as I can based on the edit, because that's important. Because I can't tell a story that didn't make it to the edit, and there are stories to tell. Maybe you can come have tea or wine or gin. And we next time you say, I can tell you what really happened. No, but
that's a deal. I always stop over in Gauteng as I go down Cape Town as well. So
there we go. It's there. We'll fry some chops. I barely eat meat, but we will make sure you have a good time. And then I'll spill it. But yeah, it was. He was in a really tough spot, but willing to hang on, and like really missing home, feeling just horrid and terrible because he's now cut his hand. And so out of that, I can see how Nicole would vote for him, and also the merge being so unknown. Like number crunching, I was like, but you have the number. There was, for me, there was no logical reason why, and no strategical reason why that vote would even make sense, even getting rid of such a close ally. And they were very, very, very close also. But I think it was just, he wasn't doing well. He was worried about, he had some personal stuff. He was worried about his dad had to be called back to work after a massive health scare. And I think it was just always on his mind. Like, I assume everyone comes to the island having their affairs sorted out at home, because you have a month. Like, sort out your stuff, move things around that you need to move around, tell people what you need to tell them, whatever. Obviously, you can't tell them you're going on the show because we sign a contract, and also for the sake of the integrity of the show, if people really knew each other before, it messes up the gameplay. And so, but that's my experience. Other people have other experiences where it happens, but then like a few days before they have a big health scare. I mean, like Felix had I think his son was like 4 months old or something when he was on. I was like, that wife deserves all the gold in the world. And like things like that. So other people have personal circumstances, and Nathan did. He was battling. But also saying like he's not going to quit, he's going to push through, and I think it was her way of just, this is my rationale in it, of just also just extending that, like, you know what, you're free to go. Like, I think it would be better for you if you go. Like I say that with a question mark, because I have gone over it many times. And for me, that was at the point where I wasn't sure what I was seeing and what I was reading, because even on our way to tribal council, we were kind of talking to Nicole and Nathan about, and Durao, I think, about voting Jeffrey out. But I could see you can see everyone's talking to each other, and you also know that you're on the outs. And so, and I could see no one felt threatened. Like not one of them felt threatened, even though I can see the information passing. So I knew it was either done to AOI, that were being targeted in some way, or something else was happening. I kept saying, this something doesn't make sense. Like the way people are acting and react and moving around and their body language, it doesn't make sense. The vote still doesn't make sense to you, to me, to everyone who's watched the show. And that is what I can think of, being on the beach and being with everyone, and also seeing her, like she was really emotional about that. Although she was emotional about other things as well, so who knows. But no, but I think it was really tough for her. So yeah.
Okay, so I've got 2 more questions for you, and then I'll let you go. So the first one, and if people haven't seen the end of the season, tune out now. It's going to be a spoiler question here. You've got 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Okay, Meryl. So the big question: why did you vote for Rob in the end instead of Nicole or Durao?
Durao was an option.
Hey, don't be that nasty. Durao is a nice character on the show.
No, he's a good character, and he's very likable. I really like Durao. Like I like Durao, but it's not a likability contest. Survivor is not that. Period.
Yeah.
So he's a very likable guy. I tried to work with him many times, and he never seemed to make his own mind up, and that always bothered me. Just he never had his own thought out opinions, like about where he goes in the show, and so for that reason, it just wasn't an option. Nicole and Rob worked really well and in tandem together all the time, but seeing the information and that I tried to work with Durao, Jock had a deeper bond with Durao and tried to work with Durao, and we couldn't get that right, you know. And here is Rob, and some people say, oh, but Rob was fed all this information, and Rob, no, he wasn't fed information. He made bonds that people believed and people trusted, and that's why people fed him information. That is a skill. I actually have this argument with a few people. One of my husband also saying like, oh no, Rob didn't play. I'm like, no. We all, the same people he worked with, we also tried to work with, and it didn't work with us. Why did it work with him? Because he had a bit, like, just a far superior ability. And also, there was a time where he was unsure. I think they had 2 idols or something, and he put votes on Steffi, not telling anyone, but for him it was like, if anything were to go south at tribal council, then at least I know one of my members are covered. I only have 1 idol, I can play it for her. Little things like that, using the island and changing it. We were all kind of given similar opportunities. You could just see a little bit past it. And I actually made a joke at the end. I'm like, what did you drink? What did you, because like as a mom, I could use whatever that is. Can we bottle it? Because if I can get people to just blindly obey, it'll, like, life would be amazing. Like, so, and he had that ability, besides the fact that he won rewards and immunities, and like a lot of people can win immunities and find idols and things like that, but he just had he had a way with people. Nicole also, she was she was even like on the days that people were voted out, she would be very close to that person that they were just not expected. Like ruthless in that way. But I think there was like Survivor is, and your viewers would know, Survivor is so complicated because you have to make these cutthroat decisions based on real relationships and real connections that you've made with people that, like, you would think or you hope would surpass, the 39 days in the game that it is. It really is like there are really deep connections that are forged in the starvation and in the rain and then you have to cut them in a way that they never expected. Like, it's horrible, but it's so good. and I think for that reason, like, him and Nicole's game were very difficult to separate, but he always had the upper hand in terms of information. Everyone just brought information to him. Like, they just did. So that is why I voted for him, and I think it's well deserved. I know it's well deserved. It is well deserved.
Yeah, like I agree with you. Rob is seen as one of the best to ever win in the circles with all the super fans. Like, if it comes to any US, any international season, I've seen some lists where people have had him as high as in the top 3 of all winners of any season. So it's pretty good. So it's pretty cool that you're not a bitter jury. You're not one of those people that voted against the player that played the best. But also, I've met Rob before, and he's a super nice guy. I can fully understand why people wanted to work with him and trust him in that, and just the way that he comes across. Obviously, I don't know him as well as you do, but just the few interactions that I've had with him has been extremely positive. Now, this leads into the last question. If you were asked to come back and play the game again, would you do it?
Yes, absolutely. With the full blessing of my family as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, 100, like, yes. There's no question. There's this weird, like, clarity in, you get essential oils that's like the very purest essence of this rose flower or this rosemary. Like, you meet the purest essence of yourself in that space. And sometimes you miss that person because you're so diluted in real life, because there's just so many things pulling you in different directions all the time. You needed to be so many things to other people, but on the island, it's like the essence of you is crushed out in that process, and it's just a beautiful thing to meet yourself there. So yeah, I would do it again.
Meryl, it's been great having you on the show. Stay there for 1 second just while I close this off. Guys, you will see me back in a few seconds where I will touch on anything that we didn't discuss for episode 9 on Survivor Island of Secrets in our rewatch podcast. I'll see you guys soon. Bye. Okay, so I'm back after having had the discussion with Meryl from Survivor South Africa, Island of Secrets, and we're going to go through any of the talking points that we didn't discuss with Meryl in her interview there in the beginning. So episode 9 here for Survivor Island of Secrets, and quite a few things happened. Again, no Riley with me, sadly, on this one. I'm hoping to have Riley back for the next one that we do, which will have Jeffrey from Survivor South Africa, Island of Secrets on that one, and hopefully he would have kicked the flu by then and be back, and I'll have someone to bounce some of these conversation points, bounce some of the ideas off in regards to what has actually happened on the episode. So we have the fallout scene here early on between Dante, Meryl, Nicole, in the beginning, with Dante sitting in the hammock and also Meryl being there with him. We can see that Nicole immediately wants to confront Dante about what happened before. And, I do feel like a little bit probably of this is coming from the fact that Nicole knows that she's got to do a little bit of damage control with Dante and Meryl. She doesn't know how long she's still going to be in this tribe before they actually go to the merge. So she's trying to go back there and get in their good graces, because she's just cut someone that both Dante and Meryl, like you would have heard Meryl just say in the interview, never thought she would cut in the show. So that kind of brings an interesting dynamic, because if you can cut your brother, who else will you cut in this game? So Dante is not really interested in having a conversation. Meryl tries to keep Dante and Nicole calm throughout this conversation and have a rational conversation, but obviously it's not going to go well. And Nicole ends up walking off, not being very happy with how that conversation went close to the hammock. The other point here as well in this episode is that we do see probably Nicole at her most vulnerable so far in the whole game. She goes into this merge having just cut Nathan, and she understands that she's got a lot of work that she now needs to go and do with her previous Saula tribe mates who are part of the Amigos. And she goes to Rob, has a conversation with Rob very briefly on the beach to say that Nathan was always going to quit, and that she ended up making the decision for Nathan so that he didn't have to make that decision for himself. And that's why she ended up cutting him out of the game. Rob kind of is still in two minds about it. He's obviously just lost his brother, the person who's the closest to him in the game. And this opens up a lot of conversation here with people like Quibus and Mike, both trying to get in there with Rob to become his new Nathan, because they know that he's just lost someone that was a key part of his game for the rest of the merge here. So very interesting play here. And probably strategically, it's a good thing to try and get in there. And well done for Rob for being so open with everybody that they trust them to the point where they all think that they could become that next Nathan to Rob. And that just shows you how good of a social game Rob is playing at this stage. Now, Nicole realizes that the best way to get back to Rob here and to get him back on her side, she will have to go and work with Sipe. Mama Sipe is the one that she needs to get on her side, because if she gets Sipe on her side, Sipe will then go back to have a conversation with Rob as well. And how she approaches this is very smart from Nicole. She ends up deciding to take the idol that she's got, split it into, and give what she says is Nathan's half to the idol to Sipe to build trust. And Sipe very much in this point, she is saying we are now married by idol, and that if she goes, I lose my idol as well. So it's a very, I think when Survivor producers around the world, and I believe it was, I actually don't remember who was the first one to do it. I think it's a US season that did it first. But regardless, whoever decided to bring in the half idols, it's a brilliant way to force people to work together. And Nicole uses this, and she's very aware of the power of giving half of the idol to Sipe, because immediately Sipe believes that she made the best move with taking the interest of the rest of the Amigos sort of into consideration when she removed Nathan. For me personally, it's still very hard to understand how that was a good move. But again, I wasn't on the island. I didn't see the 24 hours of Nathan struggling and potentially him wanting to go home. So she gets Sipe back on hand there, and Sipe goes and has that conversation with Rob to say that she's now got the other half of the idol and Nicole's not that bad. So Rob again is thinking, okay, well, she can work her way back in with my 7 that I've got over time, and we'll cut some other people off, like Jeffrey, for instance, which early in this episode is Rob's target. So he's hoping that this will give Nicole an opportunity to work her way back into his alliance. Now, Dante and Meryl tries to link back up with their previous tribe members here, Quibus and Jark, and they're trying to form something, I think, to go after Jeffrey in this episode, which to me is a bit confusing that they won't be going after anybody that's in the tribe that they haven't actually spent any time with. I do know that the rift between Jeffrey and Dante and Mubba was pretty big in that previous tribe, and they're probably just thinking, these guys are coming for us. We need to get a counterattack going. And Jark very smartly here plays the middle ground, and he says that, you know, he can go to to Dante and to Meryl to find information that he then can use against them. So Jark never really had any intention, I believe, at this stage to ever go back to his previous alliance. And I feel like Jark felt the way he played his early game, showing that he maybe isn't the most trustworthy by playing as idol, he kind of burned his bridges with them, and he kind of never really thought about going back. And why would he? He's got Sipe with him. He's now got Doral, who's come back, who forms part of the Misfits Alliance, and he sits very solidly within the Spitshaker 7. So he feels like he's got good bonds, and he also mentions in this episode that he has bigger targets there than himself as well, because in the Spitshaker 7, he's got Quibus and Rob, who he believes will get sniped before he does, and he can sit back and play his more under-the-radar game that he's been wanting to play coming into the merge here. Now, the individual immunity is a very popular and well-known one to everybody that are, you know, if we're Survivor fans out there, we all know the challenge where you have to keep your hands above your head, and if you drop it, the bucket of water falls on you. And Steffi ends up winning this one. She walks away with the immunity, showing us that she is going to be a bit of a threat here going into the merge cycle, or the merge section of the game, where individual wins is going to actually matter. So she's going to be someone that they will have to look out for, and she is an athlete. Very interesting choice from her here to send herself to the Island of Secrets, where she finds out that she will be immune on tribal. She doesn't get a vote. So I guess her having the immunity necklace doesn't really make that big of a difference because she's going to the Island of Secrets. But the reason here that she wants to go to the Island of Secrets is because she wants some alone time so she can recuperate and refresh her mind going into this later part of the game, which Steffi has been really interesting to me. I find that in some ways she kind of might be like, she's very outspoken. I'm a big fan of the Myers-Briggs test. I'd love to know what personality type she is on the Myers-Briggs test, because I feel like she's that combination between someone that's very self-confident but also a bit of an introvert, someone that likes to have her own time in her own space here, and refresh. And I know that there's a few players that said, being on the few previous players that played this season that said going to the Island of Secrets wasn't too bad because you also get great shelter with having that roof over your head there. Now, Rob is also seen here at this stage as being the center of all information. So we've got all different people running to him. You've got Jark there talking to him at certain times, bringing the information of what he's learned from Dante and Meryl. And you've got people like Mike trying to get in there, Quibber's trying to get in there. They're all trying to become his next Nathan. You've got Sipe coming to him, having conversations with him. And very much you can see that Rob is playing a superior social game at this stage. And we should give him all of the credit in regards to what he's been able to pull off up until this point. People want to work with him, even though he physically seems to be a really big threat going into the merge and someone that could win a lot of individual immunity challenges. But he's so well sort of cocooned inside of that Spit Shaker 7 there, and he's got a lot of alliances and people wanting to work with him, so he's got a lot of options. Kim Spradley would have been proud with him and all of his options. Now Jeffrey and Mubba tries to work their way back with Mike. They're trying to build that bond back that they had previously, and Mike being one of those close people that they wanted to work with, but Mike is now solidly within the Spit Shaker 7, and he realizes there's very little benefit for him to move to Jeffrey, and he says that Jeffrey has made a huge mistake in voting Nathan out, because now Rob doesn't want anything to do with anyone that was in that tribal council, and it's going to be tough for him to work here with Jeffrey when he's already sort of got himself in a better position moving forward. Now, lastly here, Rob decides that Meryl is the biggest target, and he's going to move the target away from Jeffrey, who he wanted to vote out early on in the game, because he realizes that Jeffrey hasn't really done much campaigning or trying to get people on his side, and it could have just been that Jeffrey's got more of a laid-back approach to that. I don't know, but we've got to believe what Rob says because he's the narrator in this instance. Meryl, on the other hand, she's seen as a threat because she's going over to all of these different people, and she's trying to get them on board to vote with her. So he believes that she is someone that can build a counter alliance that potentially could become a threat to him later in the game. So due to that, they changed the target, and Meryl is voted out in the spot, and she becomes the first member of the jury. So that is kind of the highlights for this episode. As always, guys, I really appreciate everyone that is watching these videos. We're nearly, we're closing in on 600 subscribers. That's the next goal. But like I've been saying in some of these videos up until this point, we're aiming to get to 1,000 subscribers so that we can do a special event on the channel. Yet to be decided, but that is a massive milestone that we are targeting. Anybody that subscribe, just know that the more subscriptions we get on this is absolutely free. It just gives us more and more credibility to get better and better people on the show, and also to improve what it is that we do. So please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell if you like what we are doing, and I'll see you next time, guys. Thanks. Bye.